So, I donated my game collections of more than 5,000 games, retaining very few for myself. Why did I do so? Very simple. My game room had reached capacity. Shelves of games and stacks of games were reaching the roof, and that's the ceiling, and that's why. Pretty simple. And if you watch some of my previous videos where I show you my game room, well, of course, the collection kept growing since, and it will continue to grow because I like to be informed about the new games that come out. I like to try new games all the time. I am a scholar of gaming, and therefore I also need to see where the hobby and the culture goes. Also, precisely because of that, that is one of the reasons why I assembled a significant collection, which has allowed me to write these two books. The scholarship in these books is based on the collection that I created. If I write a book about books, I can go to the library, but there wasn't a similar place where I could go and play the games that I needed to write my books. And so I assembled it together with, of course, games that I just bought for personal pleasure and review copies that have come in for my video blog. So I thought I would tell you about my donation, if nothing else, so that you know why the game room looks a little bit different from maybe the last time that you saw it. So, what happened? Where did I send them? They have all been donated to the Lilly Library of Indiana University. It is a special collection library that collects not just books, but also other kinds of important, interesting cultural artifacts. It belongs to Indiana University, it's part of Indiana University, but you do not need to be affiliated with Indiana University to use the materials. So give them some time to process the big mountains of boxes, the various truckloads that it took to transfer the games. Give them some time. But once they catalog them and process them, if you're in town, feel free to go and look at some of my games, play them, make a reservation, etc., etc., etc. We made an agreement that these games were going to be made available for the general public, which is awesome because this way I can keep using those games and you can do so also. And of course, people who work at IU, scholars, students, professors, teachers, they can use the collection too. What a privilege for me to be able to still use my games. I can go and see them and use them anytime I want. Can't have game night late at night, of course, but I can still have access to the collection, and other people who are interested in modern games can do so too. What a privilege, what a treat. So now the question became, what should I keep? The idea was I wanted to donate as many games as I possibly could and retain as few as I possibly could. This way, the aggregate research value of the collection remained intact. Having half of the collection there, half the collection at my home, wasn't all that interesting. Also because then, well, I would probably reach capacity at some point in the near future anyways. And again, if somebody's doing a project about games based on the Lord of the Rings, there is a significant number there. They don't have to guess if it's at my house or there. Incidentally, if you're curious to see what now is the collection of the Lilly Library, you can look at my Board Game Geek profile. I still keep my collection, my catalog there, so I also have a record of what's there when I'll keep buying, I'll keep acquiring, and at some point I'll keep donating and keeping that collection fresh. The question remains, what should I keep? Some games were a no-brainer, games that my family plays. That's as simple as that. If I play them with my kids, with my wife, and they're still interested in playing these games, they stay, non-negotiable. Games that I use for teaching, because I teach about games, and I also use games to teach things that are not games necessarily, such as military history. So if you see in my game room a stack of 6 copies of the same game, it means that I like it, because if I didn't like it, I wouldn't use it for teaching. And I use it for teaching, and that's why the game stays. Then there are the games that, again, I realistically play or I can see myself play. These are all games that I like. If I don't like them, they don't need to stay. But there are many games that I like that I just haven't played in a long time. And since I like to try new games all the time, I do not know how many times, if ever, I will play some of these games. One of my favorite games of all time, Game of Thrones 2nd edition. but it's so big and long and complicated, and the stars must be right. You need to have exactly the right amount of players, and they need to sit in a certain way around the table for things to really work very well. By which I mean the personalities of the players may come into play and make the experience less ideal. One of my favorite games, If the Stars Are Right, and I don't think I played one of these like totally epic games that I really enjoyed in maybe 10, 13 years. Will I ever play it again? I don't know. So that's an example of a game that I enjoy very much, but realistically doesn't hit the table very often. And there are games that I enjoy very much, but they're somewhat complicated, maybe from 10 years ago, 7 years ago. To play them now, we need to relearn them. And since I'm curious about the new things that come out, I am more likely, realistically, to spend the time to learn a new game than to spend a similar amount of time relearning a game from 10, 8 years ago. So those games that I enjoy very much, and I would probably enjoy. If you invite me and it's set up there and you teach it to me, I'll enjoy very much, but I probably won't put the work in there again. Or games that my friends have, they're huge fans, and I know if I want to play them, that'll be the deal. I ask them, hey, Sam, do you want to play Lacrimosa or Brass? And you have all the fancy components. They'll be like, yes, right away. So games that my friends have and they're happy to play and teach, I don't need them, strictly speaking, on my house. So these are the games that some of the games that I would keep: family, realistically playing, and for teaching. The realistically playing are also the games that in previous videos I described as the second game of the night, and I already had a section dedicated to them, so it was pretty easy actually to select those, to identify those. They're the kind of game that after we play like a big beast early in the game night, we still want to play something, but it needs to be something a little lighter, easier to learn or relearn. Games that we play often, so we remember how it works, or it's easy to go through the rules. And so games such as Pandemic, Ticket to Ride, Splendor, Senshi, The Crypto, these kind of games are what I already thought of as the second game of the night. They had a specific area, and so you will see that probably there isn't a lot of difference there. I moved them around a bit, but a lot of those games stayed. As for the games that I could donate, first, games that don't meet the previous parameters, and they have a solitaire option, or I can play solitaire. And I can play solitaire more games than most people seem to be able to. Commands and Color, for example, Commands and Color system, I love it. It's a card-driven system. Many people would not think of this as solitaire friendly. I've been playing two-handed since it came out, so that can go. And solitaire friendly or solitaire games may include some that I love very much. One of my favorite games of all time, B-17, Queen of the Skies. I can play it at the little library instead of playing at my house. Nothing changes if the game has a solitaire option. So the games that could go are the games that haven't played in a while. They're fairly complicated. I don't feel like relearning them rather than learning a new game, and or have a solitaire option. And then, of course, there are games that maybe I didn't like very much. Or games that I acquired for my scholarship, and after I play them, examine them, I don't feel that, again, it's a game that I would actually play, actively and actually play. Once you take all of these things into account, I was able to happily reduce my collection from more than 5,000 games to, I believe, less than 200, which I think is a pretty extreme culling. Maybe you're curious to see where that leads, and so next segment of this video, I'm going to show you what my game studio looks like right now. This is the place, this mini building here in the backyard of my house. This part sticking out, just a shed for tool and other stuff. But the rest of the building still makes for a decent game room. You may remember seeing it in previous videos. The room will look a little bit different. A little bit different now. So here we go. Well, first, the back of the door. Not irrelevant. The room used to be so full of games that there was a shoe holder there, and the various pockets were filled with small games. Buffy, that used to be there before the games, is back. The shelves are all in place, still in place where they were, but now they're not quite as loaded. Look at that puzzle, 4,000 pieces. I sold it in 2020. Hadn't seen it in so long because the games are stuck all the way there. Holders for small games, empty now. These are my puzzles, jigsaw puzzles. They used to be stored on a loft. No reason not to place them where they're easier to reach now. Incidentally, that is what inspired me to work on this puzzle that had been unsolved. Was in the unsolved pile. The table can be bigger, but can also be made as small as you see. We made it smaller so that the librarians and the moving crew and I could just walk around boxing games and packing everything up. The shelves are all in place, but on those shelves now you see my collection of Barbies. I became quite fond of the franchise after seeing the movie, so I started collecting some. On this other side, we have all of this space for new games and some miscellaneous game supplies, paper miniatures, tokens, dice towers, cards for Magic the Gathering, draft, traditional card decks, some role-playing games. But I know what you all want to see. It is the main collection, what is left out of 5,000, more than 5,000 games. These 6 shelves here on top and these 2 are the ones that remained. Those 2 shelves are shelves of opportunity. Those are games that I haven't played yet. So as I said, they're games here, multiple copies because I use them when teaching and I also enjoy them very much, by the way. Not many word games. This is it. So you see which ones really matter. Because ultimately most of the word games I played them solo. I could play them solo. And so I'll just go to the little library to do so. And then, as I said, games that I play, for example, Decorum, you cannot play that one solo. And then here games that I played, or you can see myself playing a game night. Pandemic, you could play solo, but my friends and family also really like it, so that stays. So the general Cold Express, we love that one. So basically now every game I look here is like, this is a game that I really love and I really would love to play. Smash Up, so many sets in that one, we're so proud of it. Micro Macro City, so good. The Vulgar Eloquencia, that's one that I use for teaching. Maybe it's not one of my favorite, strictly speaking. Lost City is one of my favorites. Splendor, love that one. Century, and so on and so forth. So this is it. These are the games that matter the most to me and the most realistically may get played in the future. Lots of room left, lots of space for future improvement and expansion. If you wonder what's on the other side of this divider, there is a TV that is connected to a Sega Genesis and to a PlayStation 4. There's a small couch, and my 11-year-old kid Lou is playing Call of Duty, so we definitely don't want to interrupt that. That's the loft where the puzzles and some other games used to be. And this is my report from my newly reorganized game room.